And when they try to live out these unrealistic expectations, they're met with pushback, disrespect, and often a whole lot of tension.
Oh, yeah.
And when this happens, often it's the kids who are caught in the middle or expected to just comply with some parenting practices that they're probably not used to and ultimately cause some confusion and some pain, sometimes even some harm.
Right.
It can be damaging. Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your stepfamily from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork.
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of stepfamily life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Well, hey there. Welcome to another episode here on the Blended Family Coaching Show.
Hello.
Yes, we're delighted to have you here as always. Hey, I know I ask this a lot, and you know what? I'm going to keep asking you. If you haven't started following the show on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, click follow because we don't want you to miss anything. You know, every other week we drop a simple step, and it's the only place we drop them. We don't put them on the website. We don't put them on social media. The only place you're going to get them is through your podcast app. So make sure you're following the show. And while you're clicking follow, scroll down just a little bit further and give us a star rating and tell us through that how you think we're doing. And maybe if you have a couple of minutes, just leave us a review and tell us exactly how you feel we're doing for you as far as bringing value and that kind of stuff. We would love to know because we always want to get better here on the show and improve the way that we're serving you.
Yes.
So anyway, enough of that. Thank you for being here. How about we get to what you really want to listen to and hop into the episode.
Yes. So today we're talking about a topic with many facets and multiple perspectives.
Don't we do that every week?
Yeah. And we just want to say up front that what we'll be sharing today are things that we hope you'll be willing to simply ponder. Just consider how these things might relate to your unique dynamics.
All right.
And the reason I say this is because we don't have any definitive answers for the big looming question that many parents have before they remarry and even after they remarry.
Yeah.
And it's a question we know is on many parents' minds because we hear about your concerns and we see how protective parents can become as they move into these challenging dynamics. It can be stressful and kind of nerve-wracking. It was for me.
Sure.
And it can produce a tremendous amount of guilt and fear, so much so that it can sometimes paralyze us and keep us stuck in this place of indecision or intense regret. And the question can impact our parenting and our relationship because it's so heavy on our hearts. And if you haven't figured out from the title of this episode already, here's the question that we're going to explore today. Will remarriage and blending cause harm to my children?
Yeah. And you know, hon, you're right. We don't have any definitive answers for those who are listening because we don't know your unique dynamics. We don't know what that journey has been like for you or for your kids up to this point. But what we have discovered is that there's some things that we do know about how to go about answering kind of this big looming question that Kim just proposed. We know some of the pitfalls and the specific dynamics that do create a harmful situation for kids. We like to call them easy wrong turns.
Right.
And we also know how you can set your kids up for the best possible outcomes when it comes to remarriage and forming a blended family. Different ways that you can intentionally avoid making those easy wrong turns.
That's right. Absolutely. So whether you're a single parent or you've been remarried and blending for years, our discussion today is for every parent who wants to make wise decisions.
Oh, I hope that's every parent.
Yeah, of course it is. And like I said earlier, it's our hope that as you're listening to this episode, episode, you'll honestly consider how this relates to your unique situation and your individual kids so that you can make the best decisions for your family and really release yourself from excessive worry, stress, guilt, fear, and indecision, right? We want that for you.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. First, we've got a little good news to share with you, and then we'll move into some easy wrong turns, and we'll also explore some healthy mindsets and attitudes around this question: will remarriage and blending cause harm to my children?
That's right. So let's start off with some good news, right? Some hopeful news. When forming a stepfamily, we're given an opportunity to model a healthy marriage to our kids and hopefully actually undo some of the negative feelings that they may have toward marriage due to that pain that they've experienced through the divorce or the separation process. That's really good news.
It is.
The truth is that creating a healthy stepfamily structure with strong parent-child bonds in a low-conflict environment can actually begin to counteract the negative impact of loss for our children. You know, some research presented by Patricia Papernow says that children in high conflict, never divorced families exhibit consistent poorer adjustment than those in low conflict, single parent, and step families.
Wow.
So what's that saying? Well, it's saying that the level of conflict in our home directly impacts children's development, even more so than the actual family structure.
Yeah, that's a really important piece of data that we've got to consider here. It's not necessarily the divorce or remarriage that causes the most damage, although there will be losses for kids to have to navigate around all that. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yep.
But it's actually the level of conflict in the home that has the potential to do the most harm, regardless of the dynamics.
Yeah.
And so instead of feeling guilty that our kids have had to live through our divorce and now have a divided family structure, maybe it's more productive for us to focus on how we can safeguard our kids from damaging conflict.
Yeah, totally.
That makes sense.
Absolutely. And in our work with blended family couples and also living out our own journey for the last 21 years,
right,
we know that couples are going to face so many challenges. And a lot of those challenges come with disagreement between us, right? And we know that couples are going to face lots of different challenges as the years come, right? And a lot of those challenges are going to come with disagreements around things like parenting expectations or resources or dealing with that former spouse in the other home. The list goes on and on. And so it's simply unrealistic to think that you're going to be able to eliminate conflict altogether. You just can't.
No.
And it actually wouldn't be healthy to try and do that, because then you're most likely going to end up avoiding problems, stuffing emotions, and probably building up a bunch of resentment. So that's clearly not going to work,
no,
right?
It's not.
Yeah.
So, well, it's really good news that a healthy step family structure can actually help our kids recover from the negative impact of divorce. The news also comes with some big challenges around conflict, which we're going to talk about a little later.
Yep.
But first, I want to share that in our experience with my daughter Annika, this research really resonates. It's clear to me that harm was caused when Annika's dad and I were enmeshed in a custody battle, and she was stuck in the middle of conflict.
Sure.
Harm was caused to Annika when you and I were stuck in unhealthy conflict cycles, right?
All of our kids were.
Yeah, especially when it was around parenting decisions. Harm was caused in her other home when Annika was exposed to excessive conflict and hostility between her dad and her stepmom. Annika's life was negatively impacted by conflict. That's really clear.
Right.
But that's not the end of her story. And I'll share more about her story just a little bit here.
Yeah, that's right. We got this term easy wrong turns that we're using from stepfamily expert Patricia Papernow. I quoted her a few minutes ago. And we really like this term because often blended family couples can unintentionally create harmful dynamics when they make an easy wrong turn.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. And we've made plenty of these easy wrong turns along the way.
We have.
We can talk about them with authority because we've lived
We
them.
know,
I promise.
yep.
Yeah. So let's just take a few minutes today to talk about some of the most common easy wrong turns, ones that we've experienced and ones that we've seen lots of couples experience.
Right.
But they also end up turning them around. And maybe we'll share some thoughts about how you can try to avoid them.
Right.
Kim said she really wants you to ponder today. And so I do. I want you to think deeply about what's actually happening and have the courage, if this happens to be going on in your home, have the courage to say, okay, well, then let's learn how to do something about it.
And when you can avoid these easy wrong turns, you'll be safeguarding your kids from harm.
That's right.
So let's tackle the first easy wrong turn, which is moving too fast.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, often when couples come together to form a step family, they tend to assume that everyone is going to benefit from this new relationship and be really excited about moving forward on this new journey together.
That's right.
But the reality is that kids will most often view this new merger as another loss for them, right? Because our kids didn't ask for this change in their home life, and it's a major change. And they may feel that they've lost some control or stability or even love if they're now having to share their parents' time and attention with a new step parent or even new step children. So we need to understand that just because we're excited and happy about our relationship, our kids may not be feeling the same.
You know, in his latest book, Preparing to Blend, Ron Deal offers very specific growing activities for parents to do with their kids.
Yeah, they're great.
They are. And these growing activities are a series of meaningful conversations that we really love because it gives kids an opportunity to honestly express what's going on inside about all the changes that they're facing. In the book, Ron says, if you experience significant resistance from children during the growing activities, you need to, at a minimum, spend some more time and energy working through the barriers, and at the maximum, consider slowing your roll toward marriage. What if you could experience a community that's all about healthy support, guidance, and practical strategies that help you thrive in your blended family? Well, now you can. Blending Together is a supportive community for blended family couples just like you.
We've educated and supported hundreds of couples navigating the unique challenges of blending a family. Now we're inviting you to join our community and experience the transformation that awaits you. But you'll need to act fast because we're getting started soon. Blending Together is not just another community. It's a place where you'll find practical, real-life strategies for building unity as a couple,
And creating more connection as a family.
experiencing partnership in parenting.
And even dealing with that difficult ex.
Blending Together is a safe, growth-focused space where you get to connect with us and, maybe more importantly, with other blended family couples who truly understand what you're going through. Along the way, you'll discover practical tools, guidance, and hope that empower you to find a future full of confidence and connection.
When you join Blending Together, you'll get to hop into a variety of resources like access to our private Facebook group and online learning platform, monthly coaching meetings, monthly Q&As, and you'll even get to vote on the content for our monthly workshops.
Blending a family can often leave couples feeling alone or isolated and stuck, and quality support can sometimes be expensive. That's why we're offering you access to all of this at a super low monthly rate, because every blended family deserves the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their budget.
That's right. So join us in the Blending Together community and unlock the secrets to successful blending. Together, we can create a future filled with hope, connection, and peace. But don't wait. Click the link in the show notes now. The doors will be closing on October 8th, and you don't want to miss out on this unique opportunity to create the future you really want alongside other couples who genuinely get it. Hey, we can't wait to meet you there.
Ron goes on to say that children shouldn't get to dictate if and when you marry, But unwise is the couple who ignores the pushback or distress evident in a child. Moving forward despite that is equivalent to shooting yourself on the foot.
Yeah.
Instead, slow down. Talk through what you're seeing and what it's telling you about the child. Consult with your mentor, therapist, or coach, and together decide how you'll move forward.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And keep in mind, this is all about finding balance. Ron says that if, on the other hand, your growing activity experience with your kids affirms your remarriage, then full steam ahead. Right? Patricia Papernow's research confirms that pace matters. While children can recover from divorce within about 2 years, estimates range from 2 to 7 years and beyond for adjustment to a stepfamily. It could be like 3 times as long to adjust to a new stepfamily as it was to adjust to that ending of their parents' marriage. As the number and intensity of transitions increase, children's well-being deteriorates. Moving slowly creates better child outcomes and supports stepfamily development.
Wow.
And you know what? We didn't move all that slowly.
No, we didn't.
Like, we knew each other for a long time, but from the time we started dating and I got to introduce to Annika, it was less than 9 months from that point.
I wouldn't recommend that to others. We don't recommend that to people we coach. Yeah. You know, the truth is every person in your blend will come with their own unique perspective. And kids are usually in a very different place emotionally than the adults. That's just the way it is. So this easy wrong turn happens when couples just jump in, move fast, and assume their kids are able to move at the same pace that they are.
Yeah.
But you can avoid this easy wrong turn by getting intentional as you move towards marriage or as you continue the process of blending. Take the time to intentionally learn everything you can about how to create healthy stepfamily dynamics and learn about kids' perspectives. So important.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about kids' perspectives on the show. In fact, we've got a whole category on our website so that you can sort episodes by that topic because we know how important this whole thing is, especially if you want to be able to avoid some of that unintentional harm.
Right.
And it can be easy to unintentionally create more harmful dynamics if you're simply unaware of the unique perspectives of your kids and the emotional binds that they often experience in these dynamics.
Yeah. And you know, to help you out and to make your life a little easier, we've included a link in the show notes that'll take you directly to every episode we've got on this one topic, understanding kids' perspectives. And not only do we discuss kids' emotional struggles with things like loyalty binds and a parent-child allegiance, but we also talk about loss and grief.
That's right. And, you know, that leads us to the next easy wrong turn, which is underestimating the impact of loss and not allowing kids to process their grief. For a stepfamily, a wedding is not the beginning of the process. It's actually the middle. Every stepfamily is born out of loss, right? There was either a death, a divorce, some kind of separation that preceded your blended family. And the reality we must understand is there's always pain and loss just under the surface of your blend. And what's going on under the surface for each family member has an impact on everyone in the family. Back in episode 132, we do a deeper dive about how loss and grief impacts blended family integration. And so we'll go ahead and throw a link in the show notes if you missed that one as well.
Yeah. And Ron Deal says, you cannot fully understand the present without tying it to the past. Said another way, you and your children must occasionally step back into the past so you can understand it and in some cases grieve it because it is always a part of your present and future.
Yeah.
Ron goes on to say, to attempt to blend your families without acknowledging loss or the presence of the past is to remain blind and disconnected from one another. You cannot truly love one another and ignore this elephant in the room.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. And it's so true. But we often see parents with some misguided beliefs around all of this.
Yeah, there's a few of those things like, oh, this new blended family will be a fresh start for everyone. My kids can leave the past and just kind of start over, right?
Right. Leave the past behind. We can all do that. Or this one, my new spouse will fill in all the gaps for my kids. And this often happens when a parent expects the step parent to replace the other biological parent who might be deceased or out of the picture or not very high functioning. So they believe that their new replacement spouse is going to come in and heal their kids' hurts and make everything okay for them.
That's right.
If only it were true.
I know. It's not going to work that way.
No.
Or sometimes an incoming step parent has this thought, I'll be able to step in and rescue these kids by being the parent that they really need. And while that's coming from a pretty good place in their heart, probably a noble place, it often overlooks the fact that kids who've experienced loss are going to need to continue grieving. They're going to have to work through that. Grief is not a one and done thing. And any attempts to try to erase or replace a lost parent, it's most likely going to backfire.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that a step parent over time, over a long period of time, won't create a significant relationship that helps bring healing.
Absolutely.
But jumping in expecting I'm just going to replace and run forward is probably an unrealistic expectation that's going to generate a lot of disappointment in you.
Yeah. Or not acknowledging the grief that comes along that journey.
For sure.
Kids really do need a safe space to grieve their losses.
We all do.
And, a new step parent, no matter how great and noble they might be, they simply can't erase the past or replace that deep biological connection that's been lost.
Right.
Now, if this is resonating with you and you want to learn more about how to give your kids that safe, healthy space to surface their grief, then go back and listen to episode 132, where we offer 10 practical tips to recognize grief and emotionally coach your kids as they process their loss and grief. Or you might grab a copy of Ron's book, Preparing to Blend, which has a whole chapter called Creating a Shared Grief Journey. It's so good, and it's got those growing activities that can help your kids openly dialogue about what's going on under the surface and help you to be able to support them through their grief in healthy ways.
Yeah, that's right. And an important thing to remember is that one of the biggest losses for kids is a loss of control over their own lives, right? Some of it is relational, but some of it's just internal for them. They didn't want their family to dissolve or their parent to die. They didn't ask for this new step parent or these new step siblings that have come on the scene. They didn't ask to have to share their parents' time, attention, and energy with all these new people. They don't really want to feel that their relationship with their parent is being threatened or that they have to compete with these new people. But the reality for most kids is that's exactly what they feel. And they don't have any control over all the many changes and choices that are taking place that are just not their choices. Changes that greatly impact their lives and their sense of stability, security, and belonging. So, while remarriage might feel like an exciting new beginning for you, and it really is for you, there's a good chance that your children perceive it as another loss for them.
Yeah. And this is so important. We don't want you to make this easy wrong turn of underestimating the impact of loss and not providing your kids a safe place where they can process their grief,
right?
Which will eventually cause some unintended harm,
right? Because
your kids will feel alone in their pain and maybe even unheard, misunderstood, or dismissed. So we encourage you to find the courage to help your kids along their grief journey.
Yeah, and I'm glad you used that word courage because we get how challenging this can be. Some of us shy away from this because it causes our own discomfort. It's hard to enter into the pain of our own child, right? And maybe it makes you feel guilty. But the good news is you can learn how to approach loss and grief as a family, and you can learn how to have open dialogue and support each other in healthy ways. There's things along the journey that Annika had to grieve. And it took me a while, but I think over time I got good at allowing her to simply process the reality of where she was and not go into fix it mode,
right,
or try to dismiss it, or try to, oh, well, all of these other
distract.
things are
Yeah.
great in your life. It took me a while, and I was a step parent. I can't imagine how tough it was for you in those
Yeah.
moments when she was processing some of that stuff.
It's really hard.
But the truth is, you can minimize your own discomfort along with all this so that you don't end up making misguided decisions that are rooted in guilt or fear or that pain that you're experiencing through the process, or you don't want to become that kind of paralyzed in the moment and move toward indecision.
Right.
Because inaction is actually negative action.
Right. A lot of times,
Right, yeah.
yep, doing nothing doesn't always solve the problem.
Exactly. And so we're going to put a link in the show notes to an episode that we did a while back about how to move beyond painful guilt and regret. And so if that's something you struggle with, I want to encourage you to take the time to go back there.
Yes, I definitely struggled with that. And it impacted me. And eventually I did learn to move beyond debilitating guilt and fear.
You
but it
totally did.
But
Yeah.
it did take time. And I just want to reiterate that when acknowledging and processing through loss and grief with our kids, we want to maintain a balance here. Okay. This isn't about projecting emotions onto our kids or dwelling in the past, right? We don't want to get stuck there. It's really about surfacing those difficult emotions they might be struggling with, the emotions that are already there, so that they're able to move through their grief in healthy ways.
I think that's what's so powerful about Ron's growing activities and preparing to blend. Like, I think even if you've been in marriage for years, there you could find value in
There's
those
value.
growing activities because it helps you just ask some questions in a different way that helps the kids surface those without, like you just said, projecting anything on them.
Yeah.
Or assuming that they're feeling anything they are.
Yeah.
It's a powerful book. you
Yeah,
know?
and you don't want to pity your kids. You
Right.
know, there's a Ron Dill quote that says, your kids don't need your pity, they need your strong leadership.
Yeah.
So it's about leading and guiding your kids through some difficult stuff so that they can get through to the other side.
Totally. And it's also about providing that safe space for kids to express what's going on inside. You're going to do both of those things simultaneously. And we can all learn how to do that well using some good emotion coaching skills. It's a skill.
It is.
Sometimes you might feel like, oh, I'm just not good at that stuff. It's a skill to be learned. That means you can learn it and you can get better.
Yep, you learned it as you came
did.
alongside
Yeah,
Annika.
so did you.
I learned it.
Yeah.
Yep, and we use emotion coaching skills with our
Totally.
mutual kids because guess what? Even kids in first families struggle.
Exactly. That's absolutely
It's not
right.
just kids in a blended dynamic. All
Totally.
kids struggle.
Right. All right. Well, let's talk about the next easy wrong turn, which is holding on to unrealistic expectations that our blended family is going to function just like a first
Yeah.
family.
Speaking of first families, yeah.
And this is a huge topic. And today we're just going to focus on kind of that doing no harm as we approach blending and integrating as a family. And we've seen a lot of couples struggle, especially around parenting and family time. Well, like we hear that over and over and over. And when they try to live out these unrealistic expectations that, hey, everything, we're just going to be a family like the
Right.
Brady Bunch, they're met with pushback, disrespect, and often a whole lot of tension.
Oh, yeah.
And when this happens, often it's the kids who are caught in the middle or expected to just comply with some parenting practices that they're probably not used to and ultimately cause some confusion and some pain. Sometimes even some harm. It can
Right.
be damaging. And all this can have a huge negative impact on step relationships.
Right. So let's talk about parenting first. And we're going to touch on some unrealistic expectations that both bio and step parents sometimes have. You know, often bio parents come in with some excitement and expectation that when they remarry, I'm going to have a partner that's going to be able to step in and help me parent and discipline my kids. Right? They've been a single parent for years, and that can sometimes be exhausting. So with this new partnership, they can kind of tap out once in a while and get a break and let their new spouse handle the kids, right? But this is an easy wrong turn, especially in the beginning of your blended journey.
Yeah, for sure. And then often on the other side of that, a step parent's going to come in and expect to have as much authority as the bio parent, sometimes even more.
Right.
And then they'll hold on to this belief that their stepkids should readily comply with their direction and correction. But most of the time that backfires. Mm-hmm. For a step parent whose focus is on correction instead of connection, they've taken an easy wrong turn that will most likely sabotage their long-term relationship with their stepkids. And for a lot of them, the short-term relationship as well. You know, most kids aren't really out there looking for another adult telling them what to do. They've already got bio parents doing all of that, right? Furthermore, when they don't yet really know you and genuine trust between you has not been firmly established, they're probably going to resist your authority or feel put out by your attempts to parent them. A step parent simply does not hold the same level of authority as a bio parent and really shouldn't attempt to play that same role.
Right. And both of these unrealistic expectations, when acted out over and over, will eventually cause harm. When a bio parent abdicates their role or authority, or when a step parent demands authority, this is when the adults and kids enter into power struggles, right?
Yeah.
And no one wins in a power struggle. You know, my daughter Annika experienced harm in her other home when her dad expected her new stepmom to take on the role of disciplinarian right out of the gate. And he left her alone with Annika on a daily basis. She was in charge.
Yeah.
And there was ongoing pain and power struggles in their dynamic for years. And eventually, her stepmom became even more aggressive and verbally violent towards Annika.
Yeah, she experienced that. I experienced similar things in my stepfamily of origin, which was also dysfunctional. And I had some pretty strong abuse at the hand of a stepparent. You know, looking back, I think my stepmom and Annika's stepmom were just trying to do what they thought they were supposed to do. To take that authority over the kids and administer discipline when the kids didn't meet the behavioral expectations. But sadly, neither of these step-parents were equipped for this role and really should never have been put into that position. As a result, harm was done. Step relationships were distant, strained, even hostile at times.
Right.
In fact, over the years, that distance between me and my stepmom, we kind of closed the gap a little bit. But we never actually really had a solid relationship.
Yeah, and you left home at an early age to get away from that dynamic. Yeah,
exactly.
You know, the bottom line is that parenting in a step family needs to be handled with care. It's not the same as first family dynamics.
Right.
The reality is it takes time, patience, and intentional connection for step relationships to grow and to establish genuine trust. The long-term goal or outcome might be that eventually a step-parent is able to gain some authority with their stepkids.
Yeah.
But their level of authority will never be as high as a bio parent.
Right.
That's just how it works. A step-parent's rule of thumb is to focus on connection, not correction. Allow each stepchild to set the pace in your relationship. Don't force yourself into a role that your stepkids aren't ready for you.
That's right. And for a bio parent, this is not the time to abdicate your authority.
No.
That won't serve your kids well. In fact, my theory is that my dad kind of did that. And that's where my mom had to step in. And that's when things got heated, right? Instead, this is the time to lean into the natural relational authority that you already have because of your history and your biological connection.
Yep.
You can be the parent that your family needs you to be.
You can.
Blended family couples have got to learn how to become effective parenting partners, which means you need to work behind closed doors to make parenting decisions as a team, but then come out and know your role. The bio parent needs to take the lead when setting and upholding the boundaries with the kids. The bio parent is the one who already has that natural relational authority, and they must be ready and willing to use that authority to direct, discipline, and hold their kids accountable. This is their role. This is their responsibility. And by holding that role and taking the responsibility, they actually protect their kids from harm. And they also support the relationship between their kids and their new spouse by allowing their spouse to just remain focused on connection. They don't have to worry about correction because you're already taking care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that allows the space in the home for the relationship between the step-parent and the stepchild to naturally start to emerge.
Yeah. You know, bio parents, if you want your kids and your new partner to have a good, solid relationship, then you've got to be the parent.
Absolutely.
You can't abdicate this.
Yeah.
So we could go on and on about easy wrong turns with parenting in a blended family. There are a lot of them. We've made plenty easy wrong turns ourselves.
Yeah, we could go on and on with our own personal stories, right?
Yeah. But we encourage you to keep learning about best practices when it comes to parenting in a blended family so that you can do no harm.
Yeah, that's right.
In fact, we'll put a link in the show notes that'll take you directly to all the episodes we've done specifically on parenting and discipline. There's quite a library in there. Okay, we only have time to touch on one more easy wrong turn, and it has to do with family time. Some couples have an expectation, or maybe it's really a hope, that their blended family is going to function the same as a first family when it comes to spending time together. They might think that family time always needs to include everyone and that spending lots and lots of time together is going to accelerate bonding.
Yeah.
But the opposite is actually true. Why? Because the strongest point of security for kids is within their intimate biological connections. They must feel securely tethered to those they already know, love, and trust before they can open themselves up to developing step relationships. And when a parent remarries, the natural response for a child is often a sense of insecurity.
Yeah. So to protect kids from experiencing that kind of pain and help them to gently ease into family dynamics, we've got to intentionally create an appropriate and healthy amount of one-on-one time between bio parent and bio kids. Ultimately, this is actually going to increase their sense of stability and security, and it also tends to lower the tensions when that whole blended family is together.
Right.
Now, back in episodes 103 and 104, we uncover 4 myths around one-on-one time between bio parents and their kids. It's critical to understand why one-on-one time is important because children can experience harm when they believe they're losing connection with that parent. And so they absolutely need this reassurance and investment of that time and connection. And I know for most of us parents, we know, hey, what do you mean? They're not losing connection with me. But that's not always their perception, and perception is reality.
Yeah.
And so we've got to be aware of it.
Yeah, this is where we see kids get stories in their head about, oh, well, mom has a new family now and I'm not a part of it, or dad's moved on and I'm not important anymore.
Yeah.
They sometimes pick up those stories whether we like it or not.
That's right.
So we don't have time to unpack all of this, but let's touch on the 4 myths that couples often believe. Myth number 1 is that biological one-on-one time creates a divide in the family.
Not so. The truth is that genuine bonds in blended families begin with a sense of security in the biological relationships.
Myth number 2 is biological one-on-one time gives the kids too much power and control.
But the truth is that when families blend, kids have valid needs that must be acknowledged and handled with care.
Now, myth number 3 is often heard from step parents. They express something like this: I'll never be fully accepted or elevated to my proper position in our marriage if my spouse spends time with their bio kids that doesn't include me.
Boy, we're tapping into that feeling of the stranded stranger there. But the truth about this is that finding my own sense of security as a step parent and just as a person is going to eventually lead to acceptance and elevation in the family. I don't want to be, worried about my position. If I do that, I'm going to be making responses and actions out of fear.
Right.
And so I want to get really secure in myself. So secure that please go spend one-on-one time with your daughter.
Be
That's
happy
important
for them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the fourth myth is often heard from bio parents, and they'll say something like, spending exclusive time with my bio kids will hurt my spouse and cause conflict in our marriage.
Boy, there's that fear thing again,
Yep.
right? But the truth is that we can work together as a couple to find solutions that meet needs for everyone.
Right.
So don't get hung up on these kinds of myths and end up missing out on the benefit of a one-on-one time strategy that can just cause a real harmful dynamics for kids as they struggle to find their sense of security. And they might start to shut down on you, or they might act out, or they may withdraw from the family. There's all kinds of different reactions they have when they feel like they're kind of second class.
They're not getting what they need from their bio parent.
That's right. The bottom line is that blended families need to operate differently than first families. And I say differently, but you know what? With our mutual kids, Phoebe and Jacob, I find all kinds of ways to spend one-on-one time with them, and it doesn't offend you. It doesn't create a bad dynamic.
No.
So in some ways, it actually is similar to really healthy things in first families.
It should be okay.
Exactly. But if we get too locked into a first family model, it tends to make us believe that if that couple relationship is close, the kids are just going to come along for the journey. And that might seem reasonable to kind of put the marriage first always in every decision and position it as the priority of the home and expect the kids to just follow suit.
And accept.
But putting the couple relationship first in a blended family over the parent-child relationship is just simply an easy wrong turn. This approach tends to pull parents away from their children, resulting in an extremely challenging transition for kids. It's another reason why blended family couples have got to understand how to slowly elevate the status of the marriage. I want to emphasize that word slowly, while patiently supporting the biological connections. Otherwise, the kids could experience some harm. It's not an either-or attitude between a new spouse and your kids, right? You're always having to choose, even though you might feel that way sometimes. But really, it's about intentionally adopting a both-and attitude so that you can care for your marriage and your kids in an intentional way. And if you want to learn more about that, you can check out episode 49. It's called Should Your Highest Priority Be Your Marriage or Your Kids?
All right, we've covered a lot today. 3 of the most common easy wrong turns that can cause harm to kids if we aren't aware of all the complexities and if we aren't intentional in our blending process. And those 3 are moving too fast,
underestimating the impact of loss and not allowing the kids to process their grief,
and unrealistic expectations that our blended family will function just like a first family, especially around parenting roles and family time. Now, there are certainly other things that blended couples need to be aware of if they want to protect their kids from harm. But let's circle back around to where we started and talk a little bit more about conflict.
Absolutely. You know, we need to do that because, like we shared earlier, it's not necessarily the family structure that causes harm. It's the degree of conflict that kids are exposed to. That's one of the primary things that can derail kids as they're developing. And we also noted earlier that it's unrealistic, even unhealthy, to try to eliminate conflict altogether because then we're usually avoiding.
Yeah.
So what are we supposed to do then?
Well, we're glad you asked because we actually do have a definitive answer to this question. And here it is. Learn healthy, effective conflict resolution skills and learn how to regulate your own emotions.
That's right.
Now, these are skills that any couple can learn.
Right.
And this can be a game changer, not just for your own connection and enjoyment as a couple, but for your kids' well-being. You can create a peaceful environment. Not necessarily perfect. That's not the goal. But we can create a place where disagreement is handled with mutual respect and collaboration.
Yeah.
It's really about avoiding toxic conflict.
That's right. Earlier, we said that we made a lot of easy wrong turns in our journey. And in our years together, conflict was something that we didn't handle well, simply because we didn't have the right communication tools. And as a result, I would erupt in lots of angry outbursts.
Right. And I would avoid issues and shut down. And both of these reactions are equally detrimental.
That's right.
They just don't work. And during that season of our marriage, our kids, all three of them, were exposed to a lot of toxic conflict.
Right.
There were underlying issues that didn't get resolved and patterns of dysfunction that continued in our relationship for far too long, honestly.
Right. And all three of our kids were hurt by this. It wasn't just about our blending dynamics, but Annika was impacted, Phoebe was impacted, Jacob was impacted. But here's the good news. We didn't stay stuck there.
No.
We got the help we needed, and we learned how to manage our emotions, even when they were painful. And we discovered how to engage in productive conflict resolution, effectively face issues, and solve problems together.
And collaborate as a team.
That's right.
Stay connected and create a peaceful environment in our home. And if we can do it, so can you.
That's right. It is amazing to believe that just 11 years ago, we were so close to signing some divorce papers. We were ready to go there.
We were stuck in conflict.
So if you're struggling, and if you want to learn more about what we've learned in our 20 plus years of blending and about the specific tools that we've mastered to resolve conflict and protect our kids from that harm, we would absolutely love to connect with you. All you got to do is click the link in the show notes to schedule a free coaching call with us.
Yeah. All right. So back to the original question that we've been wrestling with today. Will remarriage and blending cause harm to my children? And the answer is yes.
What?
There's a good chance that your kids could experience some harm.
Yeah, some will probably come. But the other answer is also no. It is possible for you to protect your kids from harm if you're aware of some of those easy wrong turns, and if you're intentional about resolving conflict in a healthy way so that you can provide a peaceful home environment. And the reality is that there are also benefits for kids when they experience a good blend.
Absolutely.
The experience of living in blended dynamics opens up opportunities for positive qualities and super strengths to emerge. There's strength even in the struggle.
That's right, honey. There is strength in the struggle. And earlier I shared some experiences Annika went through where harm was caused. And I also said that that wasn't the end of her story. You know, in our custody battle, Annika got to witness me courageously fighting for her. And this was something she needed to see, and it gave her the courage to fight for herself later on.
It was appropriate.
Yeah. In our home early on, Annika had a front row seat to our dysfunction as a couple, right?
She did.
But she also had a front row seat to our transformation. She saw us work together to strengthen our marriage. She saw us implement new skills around communication, conflict resolution, problem solving, and even parenting.
That's right.
And she eventually witnessed how a loving, healthy marriage functions. Not a perfect marriage, but one that sticks together through the hard times and comes out on the other side with greater commitment, connection, and satisfaction.
Yep.
And so when we were able to start turning things around and modeling healthy conflict resolution, Annika benefited.
That's true.
Over the years, she has learned things about relationships that she never would have had the opportunity to learn if I hadn't have remarried you, honey. I truly believe that.
I think that's right.
So even though she did experience harm because it was impossible for me to shield her from conflict, Annika has also benefited greatly from having a positive example of marriage and an awesome stepdad who's continued to love and support her over the years. And for that, I'm truly grateful.
Well, thanks for sharing that, honey. You know, sometimes we see parents get high-centered on the harm, which is really easy to do because no parent wants their child to experience negative things, right? They want to protect the child. But we need to be able to find a healthy perspective that can balance the negative with the positive and continue to remind ourselves that our kids' story isn't over just because they've experienced harm.
Absolutely.
And as we've talked about all this, we don't want you to get high-centered on harm either.
Yeah.
We're not sharing all this to create guilt or fear or anything like that. The good news about all this is wherever you are, even if you've already made some of these easy wrong turns, you can actually turn it around. We did a decade of wrong turns.
We did.
And now we've had another decade of actually turning those around. Yep. And it's amazing the season that we're in right now.
Yeah, it's never too late.
That's right.
There's a lot of things we can do for our kids to help them overcome any damage that's already been done, to help them heal and thrive in these dynamics.
Totally.
And we know that's what you want, right? Or you wouldn't be listening to our podcast.
Right.
You want the best possible outcomes for your kids. But the reality is you won't be able to help them if you aren't aware of the possible easy wrong turns ahead. And if we can focus on the bigger picture for a moment, kids learn important life skills such as acceptance, flexibility, and resilience as they adapt to blended family life. In fact, back in episode 11, we actually did an episode called 3 Hidden Strengths for Imperfect Blended Families.
That's right.
So if you want to be encouraged and focus on some of the positives that can come out of these dynamics, just click the link in the show notes to that episode.
That's right. And we'll leave you with one other positive note. Research overwhelmingly confirms that the early years for a blended family are the hardest for both children and adults. Now, that may not surprise you. You're like, really, Mike? Tell me something I didn't know, right? But listen to this. In long-term step families, there's a consistent finding that these early stage growing pains will significantly change, even disappear over time.
Yeah, that's so encouraging.
Yeah.
We definitely need to persevere.
For sure.
You know, as our friends over at Family Life Blended say, difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations.
That's right.
That's been our story. Remember that research reveals it takes an average of 7 years for a step family to integrate. That reality, it might be a hard one for you to swallow, but it might also relieve some of the pressure and help you to accept that blending will take time. This is a process.
Yeah, and hopefully just pondering this discussion today, like Kim invited you to do at the beginning, hopefully that's given you a few more things to consider as you patiently blend.
Right.
There are a lot of ways you can intentionally create an environment where integration gradually occurs in a healthy way without causing unnecessary harm to your kids. You can avoid those easy wrong turns that we've talked about.
And you know, if you're experiencing conflict in your home, whether it's between you and your spouse or with the kids, or even if it's with your former spouse in the other home, please reach out to us. If you're ready to break out of those unhealthy patterns of conflict and learn a new skill that'll definitely create more peace for everyone in your home, all you need to do is click the link, schedule your free coaching call with us, and learn more about what you can do to break the cycles of toxic conflict and really create more peace.
Absolutely. And don't forget to follow us over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you are, so that you don't miss next week's Simple Step, where I'm just going to share a little bit. Kim just mentioned this whole conflict with a former spouse, right? Across households. Yep. I'm going to talk about that a little bit from a step-parent perspective. So what was it I had to keep in mind when you were in that battle with your ex? And how can I go about encouraging lowering the conflict and creating a more healthy environment for Annika? And you won't want to miss it.
Yeah, you were very helpful back then, honey.
Oh, too bad I'm not as helpful now. But,
oh.
Well, hey, make sure you tune in for that next week, but we're going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.